This episode of DETV's Her Perspective is brought to you by Blue Diamond Dental, where we make smiles that last a lifetime.
Good evening. I am Melanie Daniels, member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and tonight we're going to have some conversation about the vice president's run for president. I am surrounded by my D9 Divine 9 sisters, and they are going to help me have that wonderful conversation. Sisters, roll call.
I am Joy Oliver Hunt. I am a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I serve as the Delaware Social Action Coordinator for the organization, and I am also the chapter president of Middletown, Delaware Alumni.
So I am Alexis Samuels, and I am a member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, and I serve as the chapter president of the Alpha Nu Sigma Alumni Chapter, which serves the Wilmington, Delaware area.
Good evening. My name is Shanina Davenport Fogan, and I am a proud member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and I am the humble and proud Delaware State Director for the state of Delaware.
So thank you, sisters, for coming and having this conversation. We know that by a number of speeches that Vice President Harris has had, she has said to all fraternities and sororities in the Panhandle to get active, to start to do something, to get involved. What in the world does that mean to you?
Anyone want to begin?
I certainly will. Our organizations have a unique opportunity to get involved. I think all of the Panhandle, by nature of our organization, have really been at the forefront. We have been stewards of our communities. We have been beacons of cultural pride. We have been protectors of our democracy. And so we have a really unique opportunity to get involved, whether it be election protection, voter voice, voter registration, voter mobilization, but to really make sure that all voices are heard in this election.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think for Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, we're really focused on voter registration as well this year, and also voter education. So I think it's important that not only are we focusing on registering everyone to vote, but what does voting mean? What is that? How do we educate the younger voters, even maybe people who haven't voted in a while, in the past few election seasons? So it's good to still educate and continue to educate about what's happening right now.
Absolutely.
So I would have to agree. So voter education is nothing new to Zeta. We recently created a 501c4, which is Zetas in Action. And that gives us the opportunity to have unlimited lobbying, have unlimited electoral workings. Our main focus through Zetas in Action is to educate the inconsistent voters, because as we know, there's many reasons why individuals don't vote. And some of them have said because they're intimidated by the process. So we want to be able to make a change in that direction, just continuously giving that education.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you all have hit on those things that are most important: voter education, voter registration, and successfully getting our voters to the polls. So let's talk a little bit about that, because that's an area that I think sometimes we don't strategize enough to make sure that our community can successfully get to the poll, get through the election process, and make sure that their vote actually counts. So let's talk about that.
Absolutely. So you hit it right there. There's this phenomenon on social media with all of the D9s, especially the sororities. We're going to stroll to the polls. Yes, we're definitely showing up and we're strolling to the polls, but as Zetas, we're taking it a step further. We're making sure that transportation is provided to those individuals, not just our elderly, but all individuals who are without transportation, to make sure that they're getting to the polls. And that's in addition to the education we're giving them, especially our younger voters, our first-time voters, educating them on the importance of their vote, the importance of their voices. And this is their opportunity, not just to make history. We all want to be a part of history, but we want to see changes. And after you make that vote, let them understand the power of their voice in holding the elected officials accountable for what they say that they're going to do. So definitely transporting them there, but standing by them along the process, making sure they follow up and make sure the actions are being taken.
Wonderful, wonderful. Did you want to
I
add
would
to
say
that?
just to piggyback off of that, I think the most important thing is the voter mobilization. And that is something that we will be working towards later in the couple months coming. Our sorority has provided us with kind of a guide. And right now we're kind of focused on voter education, but in the coming months, it's going to be voter mobilization. How do we get those folks to the polls? But it's also understanding which communities need us to transfer them to the polls.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's kind of what we have to start with, is understanding, okay, which communities don't have transportation? Which do we know are taking the bus or walking to get where they need? Those are the areas where we want to look for, so we know where to go to start to transport these folks to the polls.
Absolutely.
Voting rights has also come under attack in many states, we know, across the country. And so Delta Sigma Theta has been involved in actual litigation to protect voting rights. So I think that's important to make sure that folks are able to get there. And then we've had an opportunity over this summer through our regional conference cycle to mobilize members. And we're on track to hit over 30,000 members that are mobilized and trained and educated around the issues around election protection, which is going to be really important. And then we are really looking to mobilize our over 400 collegiate chapters across the country, because we know the young voters are going to be really important, and getting their voice heard and making sure they know how to vote, where to vote, and the importance of their vote is going to be really, really critical also as we move forward.
Absolutely. So it sounds like from a Divine Nine sororities perspective, we all are aligned.
Absolutely.
I speak this all the time, and I'm sure members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Zeta Omega chapter are really tired of hearing it, but I struggle with us working in silos. Delaware is a small state, and there is no reason why we should be working in silos. So what is your idea with regard to mobilizing together as D9 sisters to really change the trajectory of what happens in Delaware? Because if you think about it, we have this interesting demographic in the Black community, right? We've got our new voters. They're brand new. They just became old enough to vote. And their questions are, what am I voting for? Is it just for president? It's our job to take it a step further and say, it's not just president, but what impacts our lives, especially here in Delaware, are our local officials. And understanding what they are lined up with, and are they going to do what we need them to do for our community? So let's talk a little bit about how we get out of silos and work together to really move this community in a way that is going to change what happens during elections.
So I think one of the things, yes, we are a small state. We're really not working in as many silos as the communities believe we are. One of the things that the Delaware state directors across the board, the D9, we've come together, we've met, or we continuously meet once a month to not just talk about social action, but just the different things that's affecting our communities and our organizations. So one of the things that we did around this topic is we did a social media campaign. So we're making sure that our young adults are aware of, again, the importance of their voices, the importance of their votes, because everybody's on TikTok, everybody's on Instagram. So that was the first thing that we did as a collective. As far as going out in the communities, there's something that's coming up where we're going to be going out knocking on doors. Asking, hey, are you registered to vote? Hey, do you need any information? Do you need any transportation? So anything that we're able to assist in, that's what we're doing collectively. Some of the organizations, I won't identify, who hasn't got on board, but we're all working collectively.
Okay, sounds like we have some work to do.
We do.
We have some work to do.
And, it's doable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because as I reflect on us getting together for this particular session, when I reached out to each one of you and said, listen, this needs to be not just Alpha Kappa Alpha talking about the excitement of their member, Vice President Harris, running for president. This is about the sisterhood. This is about Divine Nine sisterhood and what we can do together to make this change. And getting this information, I believe, out through our podcast is one of the ways that we do it. You all jumped on board. You said yes, absolutely. You worked through flying in and getting over. You worked through, hey, Melanie, give me more details. I need to make sure that I'm on track. Mm-hmm. So there's definitely the opportunity for us to make a change. Mm-hmm. And so let's talk about this demographic, right? So we've got to talk about strategy. And I started saying, we've got those young voters. Mm-hmm. They're brand new. They really don't understand the process, and we've got to educate them. We also have those that just have said, I'm registered, but I don't vote. I don't vote. Mm-hmm. And we have to get them excited about voting. And then we've got those that just want to vote, but don't know how to get to the polls, don't know how to get things done. And then we've got this kind of apathetic group that says, well, my vote doesn't count. How do we make sure that every area of that demographic is educated, is empowered, understands their voice is important, understands the importance of advocacy and public policy and their role in it? How do we do it?
Yeah, I think from mine, I think that's going to vary from each demographic. You have, as mentioned, starting the campaigns on TikTok and Instagram and different social media platforms. That's going to cater to our younger generation. But I think the part that's important about it is watching and understanding what's true and what's fake news. And I think that's the hard part with the younger generation. Absolutely. Is using TikTok and Instagram might be okay for a campaign, but then they can get lost in what's there. Mm-hmm. So making sure that they are looking at the resources that actually do matter and are coming from reputable resources. I know one thing that our chapter is currently doing is we're working with the League of Women's Voters. Mm-hmm. And I think when you work with other community organizations that other people may be familiar with or know about, you might cater to a different org, maybe those who aren't able to get to the polls. Mm-hmm. A lot of members in the League of Women's Voters actually need help getting to the polls. Mm-hmm. So you have to kind of change how you're going to strategize to each of these different demographics given their circumstances. Mm-hmm. So it's important to note that we can't do the same for all. Right. So we have to figure which lane are we going to try and aim with first, and how are we going to address the rest?
Absolutely.
And that's where the partnerships come in.
That's
it. Exactly.
That's the key thing, partnerships.
That's it.
I think this is a moment. And you mentioned not working in silos. I think what was really inspiring is maybe just a week or so after the announced candidacy, we saw a collective announcement come out from the National Panhellenic Council, where we saw the leadership, the international leadership of all these organizations come together and put out a unified statement around voter mobilization and begin to strategize immediately. I think that top-down strategy does make its way down throughout the organization, and it really helps to leverage the collective strength of our organizations. We know that the message is important, but the messenger is also important.
Absolutely.
So when we are looking at collegiate chapters across the nation, across all of these organizations, when we're looking at this very diverse membership of our organizations, 5 years of service to 50 years of service. It really encompasses several age groups that are able to reach all of their demographics, their families, their friends, their coworkers, the organizations that they're also a part of. It becomes really important to really lend some credibility and to really get the ear of those that we need to change their behavior and take action.
Absolutely. Absolutely. These are the important aspects, I believe, of how we can be successful as a community getting those to the polls is understanding the issues. I find that, as you said, Sister Alexis, that we can get caught in fake news. It's a lot of it out there. So let's talk about it's Olympic season, and so organizations and PACs have purchased commercial time. And in that commercial time, I have taken note, there have been in a time period of 6 hours, 2,800 impressions of a particular section of individuals talking about what the candidate can't do, won't do, will not do, is not capable of doing, has done. Why did she do it? All of these negative impressions and not one word about what we will do, how we will change, what is best for America because of this. So how do we make sure, other than TikTok, other than Instagram, how do we counteract these impressions that are coming across to us in the television that many times. 2,800 times is a lot of impressions in 6 hours. And you know, my mother used to say the number of impressions encourage people to purchase, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're up late at night, sisters, if you're up late at night, don't watch all those impressions, because they are there to try and convince you to buy things, right, and buy things that you probably don't even need, right? Yeah. So how do we make sure that these negative impressions don't convince our apathetic voters, oh, okay, well then I'm going to go this way because this candidate's not doing anything, when that really is not the truth? How do we figure out how to counteract that?
So immediately I saw the word safe space came to mind, creating an opportunity for individuals to have these challenging conversations. Education, just educating them on, or encouraging, I would say encouraging them to do your own research. Don't go by somebody else's experience. The fake news, as Alexis has said. So creating that safe space, and then also just encouraging them to do the research. That was the first thing that popped to mind.
Absolutely.
I think we really have to encourage people to listen critically, but also identify what is important to them as individuals, right? Beyond our organizations. What is important to you? I had a really organic conversation with my 15-year-old who was complaining about the heat last week. And it was just a very organic conversation, but he said, we're cooked. This is the hottest it's been in my whole 15-year life. And, you know, it ended up in a conversation about global warming and what was important to him and how many years he thought before we were going to have to wear special suits outside in the summer, but really framing it to him as an issue that's important to him, really elevate it in a way that we hadn't talked about before, and saying, now what can we do? What can you and I do, but what can the state do? What can we do as a nation around this issue? So it was a really important conversation to have with a 15-year-old and casual conversation, but that's the kind of critical thinking and analysis and elevation of priorities that we have to do across the board.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Communication.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest part of it, is it has to matter to you and what you feel and the issues that matter to you, because there's a lot of issues. There are a lot of things that's happening at the national level, but one thing may not be as important to the next person. So doing your own research allows you to see, okay, what matters to me and what do I actually care about, and who's, you know, in the area that I want to be in.
Exactly. So I think that as we look at our individual organizations, we've had resolutions that have gone out that, you know, say that we stand, you know, based upon, you know, mental health issues and suicide. That's huge now in the Black community, where it had not been before. So having that kind of support and having at least having some type of administration that is focused on the importance of that is going to resonate with those that have been struggling with that in their family. But of course, if you have not had anyone that has had mental health issues, I don't know very many families that don't, but you know, for those that might not, that's hard for them to relate to it. It's hard for them to come to it. So what do we need to do when we talk about the importance of what are the resolutions that our organizations individually have put out?
I think the resolutions are important because they provide a lot of framework around the organization's position. You mentioned the importance of our designations between 501c3 and 501c7, and the 501c7 distinction really prevents an organization from backing a particular party or a candidate, but it does allow an organization to identify and elevate priorities. For Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, they include but are not limited to reproductive rights, economic justice, health disparities, issues that are really important to a lot of people in our community, but really allows our organization to mobilize around those issues. And like you said, will certainly allow members and the organization, you know, to really hone in on what's most important and then be able to decide from there.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I think that's kind of the biggest part of what each organization is doing, is that they are sharing with their members these are the issues that we want to call out to you. I know Sigma Gamma Rho sorority is very big with having Black jobs for our Black and brown, families, and having those jobs available. They really share that with us, let us know that, hey, this is what the administration is doing today. Now let's see how it's going to be moving forward. And that is one thing that they try to push to us so that we can share that further with our members and our communities as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would have to say for Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, our focus, not just this year, but more so this year, has been Black infant and maternal mortality. That's been an initiative from our international president, Dr. Stacey N.C. Grant, and one of her biggest focus is the power of she. And she just stands for social health and economic justice. And when we're talking about health justice, we're talking about bringing awareness to such a critical, sensitive topic that's not being talked about in our communities. That's on the international level. And even on the state level, just recently, we've been acknowledged by our senators for the work that Zetas are doing around that topic. So just getting that information out and that awareness has been our focus.
Absolutely. So as you all can see, there's a lot that we have to talk about. This nut has clearly not been cracked. So we're going to talk a lot more about it in the weeks to come, in the days to come. There will be more D9 experiences. So hang in there with us because we're going to talk about it.
Blue Diamond Dental, here in the first state of Delaware, provides quality dental care in a family environment. Not only do we take you from 6 months to 1 year of your dental cleanings, but we provide excellence in treatment. Please come and join us. 2300 Pennsylvania Avenue, Suite 2C, Wilmington, Delaware, 302-655-8387. We look forward to seeing you.
Well, welcome back. If you haven't heard, we've been having lively conversation about Vice President Harris's run for president and all of the issues, all of the concerns, all of the resolutions that come along with it. We've had some D9 sister conversation about what we can do to work together, to mobilize and move all of our Black community in Delaware to the polls. So now we're going to turn just a little bit to our youngest sister on the panel. We've got a millennial Gen Xer, and I think one of the areas that we need to talk about is this safe space and how to have conversation with you guys, because you are very excited about those things that are happening internationally. I have had so many conversations about what is happening in Israel, what is happening with Ukraine, and how our current administration decisions are not in line with what they view as right, and putting the lives of others first, right? I think that that's important conversation. I do. I think that international issues are important. But when you look at international issues and forget about what's happening here in the United States, then we're missing the boat. And there are people that are starving. There's mental health issues. We've talked about these things. They are real here in the United States. How do we have conversation that not only recognizes and respects that international focus, but also helps you to see the importance of finding the candidate that's going to help us change the U.S.?
Yeah,
That's a good question.
that's a great question. I think the most important part is realizing that most of our millennials and Gen Z is recent graduates or still in college. So a lot of these international people that they may interact with are their peers. They're people that they're seeing in classes, they're walking down the hallways with, they're seeing in some of their neighborhoods even. So a lot of times when they see the international in their neighborhoods, in their communities, and as their peers, that's their friends. They're saying, oh, well, what issues matter to you? But they're not looking at what issues might matter to them. And I think that's the difference between what a lot of millennials are going through right now, is that with social media, they're seeing what their peers are posting about, and they're saying, oh, well, these issues are important and the US is not doing anything about it, so let's call it out. But in the reality, there are still things in the United States that's happening that they should be aware of. And I think the only way to make them aware is putting them in the situations and exposing them to those communities.
Absolutely.
Everyone, we're young. It's the millennials. We're out and about. We are in the streets, as they might say. We're attending our community events. So when we actually see the homeless, see people who are starving, doing the service to help those, I think that passion grows. My passion, is to serve the community. So I'm in the community and seeing what is happening. But if they're only at home and they're only listening to their peers and seeing what's online, they don't know, and they never will know. So the only way to be passionate about it is to expose them to it and say, hey, go out into your community, see what's there. Drive down the street in your neighborhoods. What needs help? What buildings need to be built? Things like that will help them understand it and get more passionate about it, because we need to be close to something. We don't call our phones anymore where we're texting. So we need to physically be somewhere to get that connection, because we're not picking up the phone anymore. So I think it's more of having that in-person interaction is really what's going to open that door, to be aware of what's happening now in the United States.
Perfect. So do you think that since you guys are really, really tied to social media, how do we transcend from social media to being in that same space together, belly to belly? I just believe that when you are belly to belly, eye to eye, chest to chest, that's when you can really talk about those things that are important, that move you. You can hear testimony of those that have been through it. How do we do that? How do we facilitate that? Is that rallies? Is that I don't know. I don't know what it is. Is it going to the church? Wait, are you all going to the churches? You all are in church,
we're
right?
going to the churches.
Yeah.
It's many different types, But I think that's where we come in at, providing those spaces, hosting the events, hosting the rallies, if we can. But more so, putting those events, because as you mentioned, social media is the number one place where they're checking. I mean, millennials, they're going immediately to TikTok. They're immediately opening the phones. They're Google searching something. But if they're searching and they see one of us having an event to make them aware of the voter education, the voter registration, what's going on, what issues are existing today, what issues do they want to see, not even at the national level, but even at the local level, even with school board elections, for example, even all the way down to seeing what's happening with our schools. We have to have those events. We have to post these flyers out in the areas where they are, on the school campuses, even if it's college campuses, high school campuses, because the parents are going to see it. So we just have to go kind of backwards, because we went away from posting things, having those things posted where we go. We're still outside. Just because social media came does not mean we're now in our homes. We're still going out. So we can still continue those things that worked before.
I love it.
I was going to say our role as organizations is to really have intentional programming. Gone are the days where you just throw together the program you want to do and you want to see, and you just, throw up a flyer at the local Walmart or the Piggly Wiggly. Gone really are those days. We have to really program with intentionality and really make sure that we're doing evaluations and we're measuring the outcomes and we're adjusting accordingly so that we stay current on our goals and stay current on our targets to make sure we're reaching the folks that we're really trying to serve the most.
Absolutely.
And I think that's an important thing, is just the evaluations of it. A lot of times, as you mentioned, we don't know how to get into those spaces. The only way we can know is by asking, hey, how was this event? Did this event help you? Did this event that we're sitting here give you guys more information? Did any event that you attend help you to more give you a feeling of, okay, now I feel like my vote matters? Are we putting those things in? Is that happening?
Right. Metrics are so important. Without metrics, you don't know the effectiveness of what you're doing, right? So we definitely have to focus in on these metrics and making those things happen. I'm going to shift just a little bit, because I am ever concerned about nonprofit statuses being brought under this bright light all of a sudden. All of a sudden it is 501c3s and 501c7s that you have to watch what you say. You have to watch what you do. You have to watch where your money goes. Are you speaking as an individual? Are you speaking as the organization? Well, what can you say as the organization? What can't you say?
there are a lot of rules that I do believe, sisters, we need to talk about now because it is the elephant in the room. And there are more nonprofit organizations than just our sororities that if they say the wrong thing, if they do the wrong thing, that can threaten their very livelihood. So let's talk a little bit about that. The rules of engagement, let's call it. And I believe as an individual, Melanie Daniels as an individual, I can vote for who I want to vote for. I can campaign for who I want to campaign for. I can put a sign in my yard. I can wear a banner across my forehead. I can do all of those things as Melanie Daniels. What I cannot do is those same actions as Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Zeta Omega Chapter, membership chairman Melanie Daniels, right? I cannot do that. And I think that we should talk about why it's important for our members in all of this excitement, because we're going to talk about why we're all excited, right? Because this is what all of this is a buildup to, right? Is the excitement of President Biden saying, hey, I'm not going to run, and here's who needs to run, right? But let's talk about what we want our members to keep in mind when it comes to this very important election season and keeping in mind our 501c3 and 501c7 status and making sure that our nonprofits don't have problems.
So I'll actually begin with the focus of not what we cannot do, but what can we do? And the first thing is realizing that the education is critical. Conversations such as this is critical. We talked about transportation for those who are in need to get to the polls. All three of those things are things that we can do, and they're all needed and they're all critical. So that's where I would identify the needs of what we can and cannot do. I don't want to focus on what we can't do, because there's so many things that we can't do, but there's so much more that we can do. Right. So let's go out in the communities and educate. Let's have these conversations, even if they're uncomfortable conversations or unfamiliar conversations. And then after we have these in-depth conversations, let's stroll, let's transport these individuals where they need to go. So that's my focus, is what we can do.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. Just to piggyback off of, I think that's mainly what Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated is doing, is actually utilizing other 501c3 organizations that already provide those resources to the community and supporting them. We are officially partnering with When We All Vote, which is providing us with all the voter registration, the flyers, the pamphlets, things that we can take without us having to create it as Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated to protect the brand. And we also have to realize that, you know, when it comes to the election season and campaigning, it's more than just the two parties, you know, and so we have to realize that I, Alexis Samuels, can go out and do as I please, but as Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, we want to let you know election season is up. Please vote. Here's the education you need. Here is how you can register, and then take that information and do it as you please. And we just hope that they will go in the direction that we are trying to aim for. But as long as we're providing the education and providing them the resources, and they do go out and vote, I think we've done what we want to do.
We've done our job.
Absolutely. Like you mentioned, the organization is constrained to really, as I mentioned, platforms and positions, and not the endorsement of parties or of people. But there's still so much work to be done around voter protection and voter mobilization and voter registration. There's so many things that we can do to make sure that voice is protected and that voice is heard. And like you said, that's where we'll certainly really concentrate all of our organizational efforts. But it's a unique opportunity, again, because of our membership, right?
Yes.
Thriving membership of college-educated women with all kinds of capabilities, and members in their personal capacities are able to do so much in terms of engaging with organizations or their churches. Organizations like Win with Black Women, for instance, are organizations that they can engage with and can do far more in their individual and personal capacities, but still have a lot to offer from an organization and a collective standpoint in such a time as this, and a historic moment like this.
Absolutely. Well, it is a historic moment, is it
It
not?
is.
Very historic.
Exciting.
Let's talk about that. I'm going to take you back to what was not a great debate. And President Biden, I do believe he is he is the congressman's man, right? He is an excellent political leader.
Yes.
He has this amazing way to bring parties together. He is willing to make the changes that benefit the whole of America as opposed to just one party. So we want to support him in what he's doing, and we want him to finish this administration strong, accomplishing all the things that he set out to do. But we know that he had to make a hard decision. And knowing how, media is so tough. They're just brutal. They just they tore him to shreds. And I think that unfortunately that caused him to do some introspection, right? But the wonderful thing that came out of that was him saying, I have all faith that the vice president of the United States can now run and represent this country as the next president of these United States. He said that. I didn't say that. He said that. So a number of things have happened, right? So that announcement came out. We were all stoked about it. And then became these webinars, these Zoom meetings, right? They were rapid fire, and covered so many different groups, not just us, right? So how do we feel about that? I'm trying to keep it calm. I'm trying to, but I am amazed at where we are as a nation, that Black, female, vice president can become president. And that we are at this point. That is truly progress. Yes. Every time we think that, things aren't going our way, because of course we felt that step back with everything that's happened with Roe versus Wade, right? Anytime you're going to tell me that I can't make decisions about my body, we have a problem. We have a problem about how this is viewed, how women are viewed across the country. But when we have a Black woman that says, I am ready to take this leadership position and make the decisions that are best for America, you cannot beat it. You cannot beat it. So what do we feel about that? I mean, what do we feel about that? I am convinced that if we do things the right way, we can encourage those that might not have ever been encouraged to vote to do so. We can get our communities excited about something they've never seen before.
That's what it is. It's something they've never seen before. It's new.
It's new. It's fresh. We have to keep this going, right? We have to keep this excitement going. And it's difficult sometimes to keep things going when you see different things happening that are meant to change this momentum. So
it's our job to keep that excitement going. It's our job, again, to create that space and opportunities for us to have these conversations, have these parties for the collegians to come out and celebrate this historical moment. And then again, include that educational piece while we're celebrating. So it's our job as leaders, it's our jobs as citizens, just to keep that excitement going for the betterment of the United States. So.
absolutely.
And I think ever since it was announced, the excitement's been up. I don't think it's gone down yet.
Great.
I want to assure you that the international organization that is Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is bubbly right along with you. It was, very shortly thereafter, our international president issued a statement really commending President Biden for his leadership and legacy as a statesman and a diplomat. And then that statement also included also really recognizing the Biden-Harris administration for their strides and really trying to create a more equitable society with economic opportunity and lots of issues that were important to the organization and to all of us. And then I think it's with tremendous pride that all of us in our organization, across the world, all the organizations are really looking at this opportunity to think, this is a woman, this is a Black woman with unparalleled preparation, who really has an opportunity to break the glass ceiling maybe once and for all, and really ascend to the presidency of the United States. I think as a sorority, yes. I think we're also really excited. We think about the legacy of our swords, Shirley Chisholm, and kind of the legacy there, and really opening the door perhaps for this moment. And I think we're all really excited and just feeling the weight of it, of this really being a historic moment for all of us to witness and to watch closely. And like you said, just be bubbly and enjoy the excitement, and I think really revel in the moment.
Right.
Really, and just be excited about it. Exactly. This is a very prepared Black woman who we all know is a member of D9 organization. I know many of us are excited about her HBCU education, as well. So there's a lot here to really be proud of in looking at this opportunity.
And I'm sitting here thinking of another word that's greater than excited, but that's the feeling. It's a moment. I know after the announcement was made, maybe 2 days later, we, Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, had the opportunity, the privilege, just to have her come to our international conference and speak, and just, I am her. This is what I need from you. This is what I'm willing to do. And it was over 6,000 women just surrounding her, embracing her, supporting her, encouraging her, saying that we are going to stand beside you. We are going to stand behind you. We are going to stand on the front lines fighting for you, just to let you know that we are in here in support. So exciting is not the word, but I'm going to figure it out before we finish.
Inspired, maybe?
Inspired, motivation, you know, all of those things.
And you have to realize it's an opportunity for the country to know about D9.
Like
I mean, even just with our coworkers, they would probably see us in our attire at work, and they're like, oh, okay, they're in a sorority. Oh, now that you're seeing someone in a higher seat that is also speaking the same terms that I was speaking with, and they're like, oh, wait, are you a part of the same thing? Okay, maybe not the same organization, but we're still a part of the D9.
Absolutely.
And I love that she is going to all of our, attending all of our events. She's supporting all of the D9 organizations. Recently, she was attending our international conference as well. And it's the fact that she even was able to come on some short notice and make sure that she shared her campaign and let us know, hey, I'm here for you, not just one organization, but for all. So,
I'm not her spokesperson, but I will say it wasn't just when she was announced as a candidate. I must say that she supported the Divine Line prior to.
Absolutely.
Yes, she's a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. However, she was inclusive and supportive of the entire D9, and this is why we're such a great unit, and we have such a great influence on the community because of her leadership and her support, even when they didn't realize who she was or the impact that she was making. So I just wanted to make note and make mention of that.
Well, you did very well to not be her spokesperson.
And I can second that, because it was last summer at our national convention where she was a speaker at the Social Action Luncheon, and I had the privilege to hear her speak there, which far preceded this candidacy. So I would say this is the ultimate silo breaker, maybe, that we were talking about, because we all feel immense pride and connection to this moment with her.
Absolutely. So there's work to do.
Yes.
It is.
There's work to do. And I think it is incumbent upon each one of us to spread that excitement all across. I liken it to the first run of my forever president, President Obama. Right?
Yes.
Oh my God. That's what it feels like.
Yes.
That's what it feels like. Yes. Like every time you think about it, you get goosebumps.
Absolutely.
And you're like, wow, look at what we are doing. We are doing it.
Absolutely.
Black women are making a move. And she is to me, the best role model of Black excellence. She is committed to change. She's committed to our entire country. She really wants to make the right decisions. So this is a great time. This is a great time. I think that we have to continue these conversations, right? I know Mr. Thomas would like to possibly have the fraternities on to have that conversation. I think that's a good thing to do. But I think we have more to say.
Yes.
Of course. We just have more to say. Right. So because this is every woman and it's because it's her perspective, we have an opportunity to keep this dialogue going, really do the education that I think is incumbent upon us. It's one thing for us to say voter education, and then people are like, what does that mean? Does that mean just registering me to vote? You know, what we're going to have to spend some time really defining those actions that we want to see happen in our community so that they understand what it means. We understand it, right? We understand it because we have retreats, we have training, we have power decks, we have all of the things that teach us about the importance of our vote, but everybody doesn't know that. So I believe that this work that we do on this show, and I'm sure Ivan will say yes to us doing it on a consistent basis, really bringing in the conversation and dialing it down so that everybody understands this is what voter education means, this is what mobilization means, this is what successfully going through the polls. I will share this one thing, and then we're gonna shift just a little bit. I had a patient come into the office who had just had this polling training, and I said, oh, well, that's got to be exciting because you're going to actually be in the center. You're going to be, handing off the ballot and watching those people, put their ballots in. And she said something very interesting that I think that we all should take a note of. She said there are several little things that can happen that will disqualify your ballot. If there is any mark, just a pin mark, just an impression of a nail, of your fingernail across a ballot, any small thing such as that can invalidate your ballot. So you think that you have a voice, right? You think that you're exercising your right to vote, and someone has actually taken that away from you. So it's things like this. I say that because I said, oh my gosh, we've got to make sure that everybody knows to pay attention. And if someone hands you a ballot saying, okay, Melanie Daniels, you're all checked in, and they hand me a ballot and it has a line on it, I'm sorry, please get me another ballot. I need a clear ballot. It's these kinds of things that really, for our community, we haven't been on top of, because the rules keep changing every time there's an election. And we have to find these things out. We have to strategize. We have to think about what can invalidate a ballot, because there are people that are trying to stifle our voice. Yeah.
And who do you call if you feel like your rights have been infringed upon in any instance? Who can help you?
Right.
Yeah.
So we have to do some research so that we can share that, because I think making sure that we educate our potential voters makes them a very intelligent voter, and make sure that their voice is heard and they are doing their job to advocate for themselves, right? So we have to, so the next couple of times that we talk, we're going to break down these things that we know have happened in the past. They will happen again. And although they might not happen here in Delaware, we need to make sure that those that live in Delaware, we all have relatives that are in another state. We need to make sure that they're aware. This, to me, is a really great ground for us to inform and educate and empower. So I really want to thank my D9 sisters for coming out and really spending time in this conversation. I'll tell you all that I sent out an email and I said, hey, here are the prompts that we're going to use to have conversation. And my lovely sister Shanita says, well, why do you have notes? And I need to make sure that I can get to my notes and actually cover these things. But this conversation happened organically, did it not? This is what we do. This is what we do. So we're going to continue this conversation. We're going to get together over and over and over again. I hope that you will come back.
Absolutely.
For us to have this conversation. And I hope you all will come back to join us. It is always, always, always good to have our D9 sisters together. And, despite what folks have put out into the atmosphere, we do love one another and we do get along.
We do.
Right. And so because of that, I think that we should thank our audience for being here. And please thank my D9 sisters for being here. We have had an incredible evening of excellent conversation. We do know that there is lots of work to do, right? And so thank you all for agreeing to be part of this work and knowing how we are going to reshape what this America looks like in the next few months. Thank you guys for being here. Have a good night.